Hello everyone and welcome back. We are here again today with Rytis Vitkauskas, founder and CEO of YPlan, tonight's going out app. So thank you very much for joining us again, Rytis, first of all.
No, thank you guys. Thanks for having me. It's an honor.
All right, and so for our new audience, can you just briefly explain what YPlan is?
Of course, YPlan is a real-time going out app. We answer the question, what can you do tonight? You pop up the app, we show you a short list, so anywhere between 10 and 20 amazing events happening in your city. You like them, 2 taps, you bought them, you're going. So it's all about last-minute spontaneous inspiration, great events, and having a lot of fun with your loved ones or with your friends. YPlan is currently live in London, New York, San Francisco, and Las Vegas, and a lot more cities are coming up soon in the near future. We're mobile only, so the only way you can consume YPlan is through your smartphone, and that's been the strategy: mobile focused, last-minute focused, incredible content focused, and expanding globally one city at a time.
All right, and for anyone who wants the elaborated version, click this video to see our first interview with Rytis. And also, can our users buy that case? That's pretty swag.
Which one?
The case that you just held up.
This one?
Yeah.
This is reserved for our super users. So once you've bought 3 or 4 times in the first month, you may receive a special invitation from us, and that invitation may include something like that as well.
So Rytis, you just mentioned that the YPlan app is for the spontaneous and is for everybody to answer the question, what should I do tonight? Do you try to specifically cater to travelers and locals differently, or does that cause you to lose focus?
YPlan primarily caters to whoever is in town, but they want to spend their evening out like a local. So YPlan really doesn't focus so much on traditional tourist type activities. We really focus on surfacing up incredible events happening in the city. So whether you're a local or whether you're a tourist, you will be seeing it will be a personalized event selection and ordering, but it will be focused very much on, as if you're a local, like what are the amazing things that you'd be doing in the city, if you were local. And, it turns out most of our customers are locals indeed. And they're very socially active. They're in the know. Most of them claim that they know their city inside out already. So what they use YPlan for is to continue to discover amazing new things. And that's what YPlan is about. By the way, I'm hearing noise in my office, so I think US just scored a goal versus that must be the case.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great news. Good luck for the interview. So Rytis, you've described the YPlan expansion model as a go, go, go mentality. And when I heard you say that, not only did I want to get up and go on a run, but I thought about how any startup that's less than a year old would kill to have that type of expansion rate and success. I know a lot of people are calling this your secret sauce, but can you share any insight with us about your replicable expansion model?
So the expansion model involves several things. First of all, it involves managerial capability. What we found is, just opening up a city doesn't really matter. You have to actually open it and make it work, and really establish deep supply relationships, really nurture your community, etc. So that involves management's time. And so when you're thinking about global expansion, you need to be very conscious about the fact that trying to do it on remote control, won't really work. So that's where I think some of the companies slip in trying to really sort of do expansion model, from a distance, right? That doesn't really work. So in our instance, what it meant is that my co-founder and I started spending a lot of time in New York before we even launched there, and then we're now we're living between London and New York, and that helps tremendously, for the business to continue to be very focused, as we're growing and expanding. So that's the first thing. Second thing is to define your expansion blueprint, and that involves a lot of variables, and their ultimate outcomes of those variables are different in every city. But you have to define those, and you need to know what you know and you know what you don't know, and then you are a lot smarter and a lot better positioned to be successful in new cities as you launch them. And then third thing is just don't be afraid to iterate and change. If something isn't working, just change it quickly and use a different approach, and go through the iteration cycles, as for as long as is needed until you find the winning formula. What worked in London may not work in New York, may not work in San Francisco, may not work in Las Vegas, and so that's been a great experience for us, in just sort of solidifying the fact that you just need to be very aware that you will need to iterate and learn and adapt and grow on the back of that.
All right, and now so many of your investors came to YPlan because they actually used your app and fell in love with it. A few of them being Ashton Kutcher, some guy named Pharrell. I think he even wrote that happy song after using your app. That's what inspired it, right?
That's correct. No, I don't know if that's what inspired him, but what was for a fact the case is when Pharrell helped us launch New York. He came to play at our launch party in New York. A happy song wasn't out there. So he had Lucky was out, obviously, and Blurred Lines was out, but Happy wasn't out yet. So that was a great time, and then I think Happy came out about a month afterwards.
After he had been using it for that long. There we go. So what have been some of the most crucial lessons that both of them have imparted to you? With some of the investors like Ashton Kutcher, for example, he is a phenomenal product thinker. So when we talk about YPlan and our expansion, where it needs to go, we always talk about product and improving the experience for the customer, and really thinking smartly about which fundamental needs the product is tapping into. How do we capture best on certain emotions that the product elicits, or that we know that the customer will have a particular emotion at his journey, and how do we capture those best, et cetera, et cetera. So those have been the most fruitful discussion points. And then someone like Pharrell is just a genuinely very well-natured individual, and just helpful across the board when it comes to industry contacts and things like that.
So as of May, Rytis, you guys have given event partners a place on the YPlan app, and it's been huge for them, getting up to 8,000 more ticket sales, which is a big deal, especially because of the 48-hour time window. Was this part of your original plan, or is it something that came as YPlan evolved?
Which part of it?
Adding the event partners to be able to have more direct relationships with people on the app.
No, that's always been the plan. YPlan is a conduit. We connect event organizers with willing audiences, right? With keen, interested people like you and I who want to do fun things, and they're spontaneous. They want to do it right now. And that's always been the business model. We connect promoters, producers, venues, and teams, with willing and interested audiences who, as it turns out, because YPlan is focused on last-minute use case, they're all new to the event. So when we send, a group of people to a show, 95% of those people would not have come had it not been for YPlan. And that's the really powerful part of our business model, and that, being so focused on last minute, discovery, as opposed to discounting, for instance, we're bringing those audiences that are just naturally keen and curious, and they're genuinely interested in the content that they're going to go and see very soon. But in a way that's very different from a lot of the other sources, right? So we bring in those new, genuinely interested audiences. Lots of loyal fans, follow from that, to a particular artist or band or a venue, etc. So YPlan really serves the job of discovery for them all.
Great.
So Jen and I have been stalking you guys, and we've seen a pretty fair amount of success over this past year. And we've seen in an interview, too, that you stated your success has to do with having all the right components in place, specifically your team. Now, for an early stage startup where diversification isn't really possible all the time, how do you recommend they get to that point?
What do you mean, diversification in team? Which parts would you like to reconcile, or would you like me to think about reconciling?
I think if I can step in, I was really curious about this. I was chatting to Chase. You mentioned in an interview, Rytis, that part of the success of YPlan has been having so many strong teams within your team. So if there's ever an issue with someone getting their ticket or getting to an event and not being able to get in, someone is right there all the time to solve the problem. For a younger startup who isn't able to have that type of on-demand 24-hour communication with users, how can they start building that platform?
Well, there's a couple of things, I guess. One is just the culture that you build at the company and the organization. We have invested as founders a stupid amount of time thinking about little things that will make the employees and everybody in the company be owners. And when people are owners, they behave like owners. And when they behave like owners, they step in for each other, and they really help each other out, and in ways that you just described. If there is a need to respond to something, and for whatever reason, one of the team members happens to be more available than another, then that's what's going to happen. There's going to be this fluid communication that just happens naturally, and nobody's going to question it twice, because that's what people do when they really own the outcome. And the outcome is our customer is king. So they have to have by far the best experience ever, and it doesn't matter whether it's our fault or somebody else's fault. If the customer isn't happy, it's our problem. So nobody wants to have a lot of problems. So they're therefore out there solving the problems before they become real problems. So culture is extremely important. And then second is there's a suite of tools that we use, obviously, to keep track of how our customers how they feel, how they're enjoying a particular event, and that relates to how we monitor social media, for example. That relates to how we monitor incoming calls and emails. That relates to how we monitor event feedback that we collect through the app itself, etc. So there is an area of tools that we then put in front of our customer support team, for example, that gives them an instant insight into whether there's emerging problems somewhere, or it's likely that something is going to blow up for some reason. Because for us, really, like, when small things happen, it sort of doesn't matter. When bigger things happen, where for whatever reason, let's say there's 500 people showing up at an event, and somehow all of them they can't get in. Like, try imagine that sort of a problem. Thankfully, we never had that sort of a problem, but that's because we've been paranoid that this can happen. Therefore, we preempt those sorts of problems well in advance. But that means that culture and tools they come together, and then if you have the capable right individuals doing their jobs, then good things will happen as a result. The end result is as you see 95% 5-star review ratings on the app stores, and very high customer net promoter score, etc.
And so
go ahead.
You said ownership mentality, which is very interesting to me, because that's something that we often strive for over here. So how do you foster that? Is it through equity? Is it through your delegations of responsibility?
There's multiple things. One is certainly equity ownership. I don't think it necessarily if somebody is not necessarily of that mentality coming in, then giving them share options in the company won't necessarily change that. But if they come in with the right mentality, then having share options in the company will help them to maintain that mentality for a long time. So that's very, very important. Then you mentioned delegation. It's a good point. There's a big difference between delegation and abdication. If you ask someone to do something, and then you emerge in 2 weeks' time to see what the end outcome is, then likelihood is that you may have had a very different idea actually of what the outcome should be, because for whatever reason the person has a different notion of things, and maybe you communicated unclearly, whatever. So the way that we think about delegation is that it's actually the responsibility of the delegator to have the excellent outcome from the delegatee, if you will, in whatever was the time frame for a particular product or feature or project. So what ends up happening is that ownership then permeates both the person who is the senior responsible person and the person who's actually delivering on the project, so that it's actually joint ownership in that sense. And it's easier said than done, believe me. But the fundamental thought process in that is exactly what I just described.
So, Rytis, something that I think has really contributed to that camaraderie, and is one thing that many founders don't take as seriously as the two of you, is that you meet every person that you hire in person, regardless of being around the world. You mentioned this in our last interview, and like you said, you had 17 employees at the time. Now you just said you're in London 1 week, you're in New York for the other 3 weeks, and I'm sure you're around the US. And you're still doing that with 60 hires. What's the importance of having a personal relationship with everyone you add to your team?
Two most important things come to mind. First is cultural fit. So what you end up having is a very high level of confidence when you hire a new person, that they will fit culturally, so that they will share all the key values of the company, that they understand and intrinsically like the things that we're doing. They love the mission that we're after, and they love the product, and they love everything about what we're doing. That's very, very important. And two, by the time that Vic and I interview people, it's typically they've been they've passed all the competency level tests, if you will. But then what we also do is we go through some basic discussion that shows you the person's intellectual as well as emotional intellect, for example, right? IQ and EQ, super important. Whatever job you do, those are very, very important characteristics for the individual to have. And both Vic, my co-founder Victoras, and I, we both appreciate those a lot, and that only can transpire as you interact with the individual in person. And then you look at for other things, honesty, super important. Does the person behave like they're a team player? Super important. And other things like that, whereby we believe that forms the fundamental of our company.
Great. And you posted recently a very helpful post on raising capital on Two Founders, which, by the way, I love the name. Thanks. So you said that investing £40 to get a premium LinkedIn account is one of the best decisions that you've made. As LinkedIn emerges as the biggest social platform for businesses, how do you recommend that entrepreneurs really leverage the platform?
I mean, there's some very simple ways to leverage the LinkedIn platform, and that those remain probably one of the most effective of ways. If you're at least reasonably well connected on LinkedIn, then you will start seeing incredible relationships that your relationships have. Right, and then you can either go to your relationships and ask for a direct introduction, or you can use premium features like InMail and go straight into sort of cold emailing mode and be able to get in touch with with people just directly. There's no right answer there, but certainly it's a hugely powerful tool that entrepreneurs are wise to leverage. And the reason why I mentioned last time that the £40 that I spent on LinkedIn were very good value is that actually some of the initial connections certainly came about through just cold emails, if you will, or cold pings via LinkedIn. It didn't mean that I was blasting 150 people with the same request. What it meant is that I've identified specific individuals with a clear, expressed or previously indicated interest in what we're.
So last year, you set out to create a marketplace that didn't exist, which is it's a goal that defines the visionary entrepreneur today. So I just want to know, where the heck are you going from here?
We're still just starting to scratch the surface. I mean, we're live in London, New York, San Francisco, and Las Vegas. That's 4. We count that there is anywhere between 800 and 1,000 cities that can and should and will have YPlan. So if you do the math, that's still a lot of cities to cover. And also in the existing ones where we're at, it's all about growing the proposition, growing the user base, catering to our existing customers with increasingly better and more exciting events. So there's really no cap as to how big YPlan can become. It's just so early still, and we remain true to our focus. True to mobile only, last minute only. Just really focus on the customer, and grow the business on that basis.
So aside from new locations, do you plan on making any additions or updates to the app?
Yes, plenty of those. In fact, if you check the most recent app, you will notice that we've expanded functionality of the app to include your customer profile, for example, and that profile will evolve significantly and will start to form a basis for much more meaningful interactions, with your friends and people you're interested in, etc. And then within the event list, what you will also notice is that, let's say if we're running a Sleep No More in New York, obviously that event is running on multiple dates. So if you pop up the app on Wednesday, we may have just one Sleep No More, but it happens on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. There will be just a very simple date and time selector, for example, to pick you exactly the time that will work for you perfectly. And that's part of the app already. And many more notable and significant improvements are gonna be coming out in the next couple of months.
Great. So Los Angeles is the next place you're heading. But how about after Los Angeles? What are a couple of the cities that people can expect?
Los Angeles definitely on the map. We've been lucky to be able to expand the team recently with some of the key hires, including our chief operating officer, who is based in London. Prior to joining YPlan, he was heading the UK and Ireland business for Living Social, and with his addition to the team, and then also a few other key hires, we're now able to push forward on both sides of the Atlantic, actually, in terms of the expansion. So you'll start hearing more about YPlan launching in cities on both sides of the Atlantic. And as I said, we're only live in 4. There is anywhere between 796 and 906 cities more to go. So there's a big map out there for us to cover.
San Diego.
Yeah, you got it. But it does mean that we have to really focus on which cities we do initially, and then in the next 4 or 5 years, YPlan will be ubiquitous, just like some of the other mobile only service apps that you're using to get you from point A to point B, or to getting your last minute hotel room or whatever. Right? So that's really the objective, and that's what we're working towards.
Well, we can't wait to watch you continue doing.